Portions of the following episode were recorded after the coronavirus pandemic started, but before the murder of George Floyd and related protests. We know these events have had and will continue to have tremendous impact on our lives and our community, and of course, the work of artists. We assert that Black Lives Matter and will be working on content that deal with such topics. As always, we'd love to hear more about what you'd like to hear from us. Stay tuned for ways to reach out to us at the end of the show.
Welcome to the Relief Podcast from the Akron Art Museum. Comfort and joy for these uncertain times. I'm Seema Rao, Deputy Director and Chief Experience Officer.
And I'm Gina Thomas-McGee, Curator of Education.
Today's episode is about mark making. So I've been making lots of marks. One, I've been my hair is growing crazy and I've been putting pens in. But actually more, I've noticed that I'm having a hard time remembering as much. My kids are in middle school and teenagers, but it makes me feel like I have baby brain. And so I've been writing with a pen all kinds of things, lists and on scraps of paper and in little notebooks. I wouldn't say that I've become organized, but I did become a lot more about mark making. What about you? Are you writing a lot?
I'm not writing so much. It's interesting. This is like, I don't know why I feel sheepish about this, but the most mark making I've been doing is via face paint with my 4-year-old. So he had requested as a gift not too long ago face paint, but he just wants me to paint on him. So he's been like, he'll come with me to the computer and like look up things, and then he'll say what he wants as his like tattoo for the day. But what's so funny and so revealing about, like, my personality is that we'll get started and he's like, okay, Mom, looks good. And I'm like, no. Like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. So I feel like I start getting really into it. And he's like, can I have my arm back? Like, we're done. Do you think that means I need to sketch more on my own? I think it probably does.
Or you need more tattoos. We were sick. I was trying to, with the girls, we used to, for years, I used to draw tattoos with pen on them and then use whatever that, liquid Band-Aid to keep it on for years and years and years. You have to use a ballpoint pen, but not an ink pen because it drains. And we would do like minimalist tattoos, and then I would draw so many tattoos, and then they would do them. So this year I was saying to my husband, I was like, well, we have a lot of time. How do they make those prison tattoos? We could learn that skill. Why not? Because my daughters were both said to me, let's get tattoos. I was like, well, I don't know. We're not doing prison tattoos. If my mother's listening to this, absolutely not. But the thing that I find fascinating, the reason I was going to say about the prison tattoos is, one thing I find very interesting about the world that we live in is that people seem to have no fear of marking their skin, either temporarily or really. But so many people, when we talk about learning to draw, are fearful of a blank page, which I think is amazing. What is that fear of the blank page?
I just feel like drawing is something that you try and it's so visible. Like, if you wanted to practice singing or you wanted to practice, I don't know, what else would you do? Even like cooking? I don't know. I guess it's all visible, but it's so right in your face. Like, I don't know. And I think so often part of the problem is, even for us as museums, like, visitors see the things when they're finished, right? They don't see all the messy in-between stages and all the sketches that it took to get there and all of the things that the artist threw away because the artist wasn't satisfied with it. And so it's too much to live up to when all you see is like the most perfect thing that like somebody worked on for years, and you then are presented with the same beginning, a blank page. Like, it's too much.
Yeah, you're actually right. I hadn't thought of it that way. It's sort of like, I was trying to think when you were saying it too, like, musicians, you don't hear Whitney Houston's, I don't know, like her mess ups or, I'm not even a Whitney Houston fan. I don't know why I picked her, but, any musician, anyone you like, picking them. I guess it's also because people have to sing at school for like a long time, right? You have to sing the national anthem for the rest of it, every time you're in school, for all of the time. And people sing in the shower. I think that, I do think like, singing in the shower is equivalent to doodling in your notes.
Definitely.
You know, and so like you're not scared of doodling, you're not scared of singing in the shower, but people, I feel like maybe it's also there's something about singing that doesn't seem as scary as drawing.
Yeah, I think part of it is, art educators have talked about this for a long time, but we lose it after a while. Like we're so encouraged when we're little to draw and sketch and doodle and, even practice our letters and things like that. And then somewhere along the way, at least in a lot of instances, I feel like a lot of people lose that. And then maybe find it again as adults. And then if they haven't found it again as adults, it's really daunting to kind of start,
It's the first mark. You're right. I was in graduate school in a business class, and so it was all business people, and they said to us, the first thing he said was, okay, draw the person you live with. And so I was the only one who drew something that looked like a person that I lived with. And everyone else was really scared and almost didn't make the first mark. And he said, oh, so you're the people who stopped learning when you were in school, and she's the one who kept doing it. And he said, the problem is, and his point was about business, and like you have to make the first step was his point. And that you basically have to keep learning. And one of the things you learn is to lack fear to continue to do business. And people who are good at business are people who keep getting, it's like a feedback loop, right? A positive feedback loop. And I think drawing in some ways is a positive feedback loop, but that's if you want your drawings to be realistic. If your drawing is just expression, just making marks, then you shouldn't, the blank page doesn't matter because you're not getting to anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, to put a value judgment on something that you're doing just as an exercise, I feel like, again, it's too much pressure. No need to do that to yourself. Just let it be,
But I think also our education system, you were an art teacher, that I do think there's some things that it does a disservice for, because there's some things like music. You have to take recorder. Everybody has to take recorder. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows they kind of feel like you could learn to play music. But I don't think we tell people you could learn to be happy with what you draw. I don't necessarily think that there's one way to draw, but we don't allow people that. Like we don't give them any success moments other than like when they're in second grade and they put their picture up on the refrigerator.
Yeah, and what's funny is I feel like a lot of times, like if you are adept at drawing, not even adept, or you just really like it, it's like, oh, you're the artist then, and children begin to sort of like label themselves like you're the art person, you're the athlete, you're this, and maybe kids aren't doing that anymore. I don't know. I feel like kids today are so awesome. I just love them so much. But then once you start telling yourself like I'm good at this or I'm not good at this, it's like self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So, whether you tell yourself over and over again, like, oh, I'm now good at math. Well, you can learn to be good at math. You can learn to like your drawing if it's what, if it's what you want to do. You can learn to love singing, even if like the physicality of your voice, like even if you are never going to be an opera star, like you can love it if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? It's not about learning to be good. It's learning to love it. We have a great collection of work from the early 20th century in Ohio. And a lot of those people worked as teaching artists a lot of times. They were professors and they probably had a lot. You see these pictures of them in a studio with lots of people who aren't want to grow up to be artists. They just want to learn to love to make something.
Right. Or be experimental and try it out. I hope right now, especially, people are trying out different hobbies and different activities with a lot less expectations of themselves. That it's a part of productivity. Like, oh, maybe if I start doing this, like I'll create an Etsy shop and start selling these, or maybe if I do this, it'll lead to this other thing. Like, I really hope right now that people, and I've seen it a little bit myself, that people are starting up hobbies just for fulfillment. And
we have those great studio videos that our colleagues are making. And, it's true. It's just draw to draw or make to make and don't sell it. The sort of side hustle culture is really problematic. And plus, there are artists who worked as artists. This week's person, Elmer, do I say Novotny?
Novotny.
He was a working artist. But the world was different in the early 20th century, early mid 20th century. I often walk by it, and it is about somebody who's a working artist, but it also feels like about what I bet a lot of people who are crafting and making at home feel, which is that they're doing it at home with their spouses because he's with his wife. So it is in some ways not a quarantine portrait, but it sure looks like one.
It does. I mean, you see them. So you see the artist and his wife in their home. I believe it's their home. I feel like his studio was inside their home because you see like his art materials on a side table, and you see like the molding of their, I don't know, around their walls, and she's sitting on like a comfy chair, so it looks very homey. So it is a good representation, I think, of a lot of stuff that's going on right now. People are doing whatever they're doing with the people in their houses around and are doing a lot of things at home. And it is a great representation of what happens right before the first mark, because you might not see it at first, but right near the artist is a totally blank canvas, and we can just imagine what's going to be on there.
That's the thing, right? You can imagine whatever you want on that blank sheet of paper. You can put anything, and then particularly with paper, if you're not doing this for a living, you can throw it away or recycle it, and then start with another sheet of paper. So I'm going to turn it over to our colleague Reggie.
Reggie here with another edition of Deep Dive. Whether it's the handprints in ancient cave paintings, the complex hieroglyphics of Egypt, or the slashes and swirls of a graffiti artist, humans have spent millennia finding ways to make their mark. Anytime we do something as simple as leave our signature or make a to-do list, we've engaged in a part of the same creative process that artists go through. This week's artist, Elmer Novotny, was a master mark maker who carefully balanced his scenes to create spaces for the viewer's eye to both move and rest. What I find fascinating in this work is the space where he's used marks sparingly to give the eye a rest. In many compositions, an artist often directs the viewer's eye around the scene in a triangle or circle motion so that the viewer can take in the full image in front of them. But in this work, Novotny brings the eye from his own face down towards his wife's knee and then up towards her face, but there's no mark or object that connects them back together. Instead of looking at each other, gesturing towards one another, or placing an object in the background to complete the loop, Novotny has left a bit of a void between their faces. This lack of marks leaves room for interpretation. Is the empty space a lull in their conversation? Have we interrupted something private, leaving their moment hanging between them? Or perhaps Novotny felt he and his wife were so deeply connected that they were able to feel comfortable with the pauses and silences that come with intense familiarity. Whatever the true meaning, Novotny's meticulousness throughout his career makes me believe that the lack of marks in that space was wholly intentional. Sometimes it is the things unseen that speak the loudest. And with that, I'll bring another segment to a close, but we'll be back again for another deep dive.
Thanks, Reggie. I loved how you talked about the amount of thought that went into every element of every composition. Every line was there because it was supposed to be there. And for me, that seems like a whole theme here with mark making. Mark making is as much about the thing that happens before you make the mark and why you've chosen to put that mark there and how you're going to express it, how thick it's going to be, how thin it's going to be, how realistic it's going to be. And that seems a lot like what Caitlin's going to talk about in a moment, that mark making is as much about the things on the page as the things in the artist's mind.
Hello all, it's Caitlin. This week I spoke to someone who I had not previously, and that's Maria Alejandra Zanetta. Born in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and living in Akron, Ohio, Alejandra is a professor of Hispanic and Literature Studies at the University of Akron, and is a working artist with a focus in printmaking. Her prints are collage-based, sometimes including text, figures, and objects, against a background that's energetic, full of patterns and colors. And though she's exhibited internationally, those with a Summit County Library card can check out her work from the museum's Art Library program. And with that, please enjoy Maria Alejandra Zanata's Shop Talk.
So excited that this is your first podcast experience.
I know, it's funny. You're not going to believe this, but Novotny's piece is one of my favorite ones. To me, he's almost like a magic realist, at least this portrait.
Oh, really?
Oh my God, I love it. I was always very intrigued by this painting. So I was so excited just to see, that was the painting that I was supposed to talk about, because I love it. I absolutely love it.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that, because we usually, with the topic of mark making for this episode, we chose Novotny for pretty obvious reasons, but I love how your work is kind of the opposite. You can see those extreme cuts from your wood blocks and the lino, and with his, it's, very realistic, very subtle mark making. So I love that you love it.
It's more psychological. He hides his mark making to make it more realistic, more
Right.
real. And therefore, you establish this relationship with the characters that are almost alive. It's great. I really love his painting.
What about this work in specific, the artist and his wife? Is there a certain area of this painting that you love, or gesture, or?
You probably don't know, but I studied painting in Argentina, but then at Ohio State, I did cultural studies and in the relationship between literature and painting. That's what I teach. My area is feminism. So I'm very used to analyze male surrealist paintings in comparison with women surrealist painters. And one very common motif is the muse and the artist. The way in which he kind of turns this upside down, because she's not a passive object at all.
Right.
She's an equal in that painter. She even has more presence than he does. She is basically defiantly looking at you like, why are you bothering us? Why are you interrupting us? And so instead of inviting the viewer to look at them, it's like, go away, you're interrupting us. So there's this very interesting tension between, what a traditional portrait painting is, and the way in which these two characters, which has a lot of personality and they're almost alive, interact with you as a viewer. So their will, which is us going away, it's fighting our will to steering. Really interesting. I really love this painting. It always caught my attention.
When I thought, I'm going to get Alejandra on here and speak about this painting, I did not expect you to have this much information and relationship to this work with your studies. I feel like I'm learning more from you right now in this moment about this work than I ever have learned before.
Oh, that's so nice of you. I'm so glad. Yeah, great.
No, thank you. So to transition a little bit, we briefly spoke about mark making, but what does mark making mean to you in your practice?
Mark making for me, it could be anything that allows me to express the intention that I have, for that specific piece. It could be lines, it could be, the way, as you mentioned, the linoleum cuts, in which you really see the mark making and the directionality of the piece and the composition, adding emphasis to that. So it could be used in a very descriptive way. For example, when I use bold lines, these diagonal lines to add movement to an object or whatever, to a landscape, still life. Or it could be used in a more conceptual and symbolic way. For example, if I add text to an image, usually the text will establish like a kind of interplay with the image, and it would complement the image or it would contradict the image. So it would add this other layer of interest to the piece. It will open the piece to an interpretation. Because, I mean, when we look at a work of art, usually we are projecting, and each day is different. Maybe today you are great and, you see this piece through this angle, but maybe another day you come and you see this piece and you are going through a different emotion. And then you are basically throwing that onto the piece and interpreting the text and the image in a completely different way. So, the mark making for me is anything that enables me to express my intention as a, you know.
Yeah, I love how you discuss the bolder lines that you cut into the wood block or the linoleum block, and how that can use as a way to show movement within the composition, but also maybe the different variations in line size could be more emotional, gives the viewer something more to perceive.
Sure, and the piece that the museum has in the library. But for me, still lives are not still lives. They are they are alive. They are not still. So whenever I make a still life, I make a point in with my mark making, in making this piece a very dynamic and with a lot of movement.
I love that you called it not a still life, but a live life. I don't know how you would make a term for that, but
I know, because they're still life is like you are it's just the very traditional way of looking. Okay, well, you have a an object in front of you and you are and it's not like that. It's
right. Speaking of studio-based practices, have a couple more fun questions for you, if you don't mind. Sure. So what is the first thing you do in the morning?
The first thing I do in the morning is feed my dog Luna, who is desperate. She is very food motivated, like the rest of the family.
Oh.
So she's like just waiting for me. That tail is like a helicopter.
Oh,
so
yeah.
So I feed her and then I go straight to the coffee maker, because without a good doses of caffeine in my bloodstream, I cannot function. So I start, having headaches if I don't have my caffeine by 11. Yeah. So yeah.
What are your 3 desert island studio needs?
Oh, that's so tough. I don't know. Well, we have lots of papers with textures and colors, and probably a scissor and a glue, some type of edible glue that I can eat in my island, savor it during the quarantine in my island. Yeah.
Would you have a flavor for your glue?
Chocolate.
That would be lovely. I love that you made sure one of your tools also doubled as food.
We are very food motivated in this family. So quarantine has been a challenge, believe me.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I love that. So out of those tools, or any tool, what is your favorite for the studio?
Well, lately, because of course, brushes and acrylic, but lately, because I've been experimenting more with printmaking, I would say, the carving tool.
Because the carving tools for printmaking have different tips. Do you have like a favorite shape of a tip, like more U shape or V?
Well, I use more the V to define the contours, and then for the areas that are more soft, I use the U shape. So, and sometimes I use the U shape just to do the mark making. That it does denting. So yeah, I love also the ones that are kind of squarish. That they have like a kind of square tip, so you can also make these wonderful grooves and kind of almost channels into the block. So yeah, I love these carving tools because they allow you with mark making, actually. So
I love that you use all those different shapes too. So with that being balanced with the studio, is that something that you would consider a silver lining during this time, or do you have like a bigger silver lining that you would say has helped with all of this going on in the world?
Yeah, well, I mean, of course, you have the heartbreak of all these people that are dying and losing their jobs and colleagues. Yesterday I was in this protest because the university is laying off colleagues, and we are all heartbreaking because We can imagine. I mean, I can imagine how hard this is. But having to self-isolate also has given me the opportunity to spend all this time alone in my studio. It's very interesting because art has become more and more like a meditation for me. Whenever I'm very upset or whenever, or if I just go and by practicing and by doing this, this engaging in this creative process is like sorting through my feelings and through my hopes. So I could call that the silver line. We are here and I have my studio at home, so I have more access.
Oh, good. Well, I always enjoy hearing that the artists are able to use their passion and to put into just coming out of this. And that makes me so glad to hear for you. And then lastly, I just have some this or that questions.
Sure.
Okay. Old versus new.
Ooh. I would say old because I always look in the past to create new things. I mean, okay. I don't really think. I mean, I think that each artist or whoever, or in my line of research too, with women's art and feminism, you add on whatever somebody else have done before. You are adding or building on it, or so I would say old, but just to move forward, not to stay stuck.
Okay, I like that. I like that interpretation. Next one, half full or half empty?
Oh, lately.
Oh no.
Definitely half empty.
No.
I wish, hope. I still have hope though, that maybe, in the future I could see the glass half full, but
right.
Definitely half empty now.
Okay. Morning or night?
Morning. After my coffee and feeling,
oh, yes.
I'm ready to go.
Fast or slow?
I'm kind of, kind of hyper, so I would say, yeah, fast.
You said you're hyper?
Yeah, and yeah, but I think it's like this personality that is like I would call it intense. So it's slow. It kind of makes me nervous. I'm not
okay.
Either, so yeah.
And last, this or that question: salty or sweet?
Oh, sweet. Oh, that's my downfall. My goodness. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite sweet snack?
Chocolate.
Oh, well, you did mention your edible glue.
I mean, yeah, chocolate. It's, yeah. My husband, actually, he's from Austria. So my in-laws used to send us a chocolate from Austria. Oh. So I would beg my husband to put these chocolates in his briefcase with a combination that I didn't know. And it was so sad to see me whenever he would leave. I would go to that briefcase and I would try to find out the password, and you would see me so pathetic. I mean, trying to, and I would get mad because I couldn't open the briefcase. So definitely sweet and chocolate. Yeah.
Oh, I love that he has a combination suitcase with chocolate.
I asked him, actually. I asked him, please lock this. I mean, I cannot restrain myself. So he did as I asked, and then I was mad because he did.
Do you have a favorite type of chocolate?
I love caramel. Well, in Argentina, it's dulce de leche. It's big. So whatever whenever you combine dark chocolate with dulce de leche, oh, that's paradise.
Okay, I love that. This is my favorite story, hearing about that briefcase. I'm going to think about this. Do you mind sharing with our viewers any upcoming projects or things you're working on currently?
Well, actually, on the 19th of July, which is this Sunday, there's this unveiling of the One World Mural series in the Short North area in Columbus. And my work is represented by the Brant Roberts Gallery. And each year, this has been going on for 7 years, each gallery in the Short North, they pick a work of art, and then the Short North Arts Alliance, they blow this image up and they basically make it a mural. So if you go to the website, and they provide you with maps, so you can go on the Short North. You don't even have to go into the gallery. Some of the galleries are open, so they're having the actual artwork that is on the wall inside. But then you can have your map and go through the short notes and look at all this artwork on the walls of the short notes.
Oh, wow.
So,
Very exciting.
I know.
You're such a lovely person to talk to. I'm so glad I got to meet you, even virtually. I wish it was in person, but
Me too. We will have the opportunity to meet personally.
I would love that.
All right, excellent. So we are so happy to be doing this and reaching out to you. If you want to reach back out to us, please do. Give us a call. Phone number is 330-790-1622, or throw us an email at podcast@akronartmuseum.org. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Relief Podcast from the Akron Art Museum. Comfort and joy for these uncertain times.
Relief Podcast is a production of the Akron Art Museum. Today, you heard from museum staff members Gina Thomas McGee, Seema Rao, Reggie Lynch, and Caitlin Evans, along with artist Maria Alejandra Zanetta. Special thank you to Jordan King, who wrote and performed all the podcast theme music. Until next time, take care and live creative.